Hello, hello, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by the Hockey Podcast Network. My name is Nick Brlansky, and as always, I am joined by Nicholas J. Horwat. Horwat, how's it going today, buddy?
I am all the way exhausted today. I usually come to you guys, a little more tired and a little more spent, but today I'm completely tuckered, so we'll see how I do today. Thankfully, we have a third person with us for today's show, Mr. Doug Glattke. He'll be here picking up the scraps that I leave behind of just my rambling, possibly.
Dougie, how you doing,
Thanks
buddy?
for having me on, guys. Doing pretty good, guys. Just getting ready for trade deadline tomorrow. You guys know that's like my Christmas, and we'll just keep rolling along here.
Shout out to Jordy Cunningham, who's joining us, our buddy from the King's Den on the THPN. We thank you for tuning in, Jordy. But we have a fun show for everybody today. Of course, we're in high spirits as the Penguins are now rocking a 3-game win streak after taking out the New Jersey Devils in back-to-back wins. Most recently, a couple of minutes ago, as we record here live on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube, as well as we now have a YouTube channel. So go check that out at Tip of the Ice-Burgh on YouTube. But we have a good show. We're going to talk some Pens hockey. We're going to talk about the overall state of the team heading into the trade deadline, as there is no more action to be had before that deadline happens tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we'll talk a little bit about the trade deadline, because the Penguins, at least from my perspective, dodged a bullet earlier this afternoon. We'll get into the Nick Delorier talk a little bit later, but let's start it off with the way the Penguins have played recently. Of course, since our last episode, the Penguins have played 3 games and have won 3 games, as I mentioned earlier. A 5-2 win against the New York Rangers at MSG, a 6-4 win against the Devils the following night on Friday, and then a 5-2 win this evening against the New Jersey Devils as well. So the Penguins 3-game win streak, in 3rd place in the division, but only 2 points behind first. How are we feeling about this team right now? Doug, you're the guest, so let's let you go first today.
I'm really confident in this team right now with where we're at. That's crazy to say with where we all were and where we thought they were going to be earlier on, right after we got into the season. But this team's really come together. They've had a lot of guys emerge. A lot of the depth guys have been great, like Angelo, Radim Zahorna, Frederick Gaudreau, and then really the emergence of Jared McCann once Jason Zucker got injured earlier in the year. That's been what I feel like was a major turning point. So they're rolling right now. They have 4 solid lines, and I'm really excited to see how the rest of this stretch goes.
Yeah, it's been a big step up for all of the depth pieces for the Pittsburgh Penguins as of late. And ever since the Malkin injury especially, their depth pieces have stepped up. Horwat, you look like you're chomping at the bit to get a word in here. What you got for us?
I was preparing my statement of how I am confident in this team as well, and then Jordy decided to toss another comment into the comment section of if we want Willie Mata back. And no, not one bit. I don't know how he's doing over there in LA, but has he unhitched the load is my only question, because that was our big complaint with him. But other than that, no, I'm definitely very confident with this team right now going into the position we are in, into this late of the season with all the injuries, which have to get mentioned every time we talk about this team. But I mean, you look at the Penguins, the Islanders, and the Capitals, all 42 games into the season, all with 27 wins. So those are good numbers to really have right now. And with the amount of games that are remaining and there's not much separation, this is a team that could fall into the lead somehow, one way or the other. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just how the dice rolls, and by the time the season's over, that's just where they are. They just happen to have that last victory.
Listen, before the season, Horwat, you put your foot down and said second place a couple of weeks ago. I put my foot down and said second place. I still believe that is a keen possibility for the Pittsburgh Penguins. First place is obviously a possibility for the Pittsburgh Penguins right now, and here's why at least second is very important for this team. While they are amazing at home, 16-3-1 at this moment in time, On the road, they are 11, 10, and 1. So they're 500 on the road. You would think that home advantage is big in any playoff series, but for the Pittsburgh Penguins, considering the way they play at home versus the way they've played on the road this season, that home advantage is going to be so huge for them.
Yeah, that's going to be massive. So getting that sort of advantage really helps. I mean, the numbers are sick when it comes to that. Getting those home victories, getting those home games in. Now with fans back too, no less. Getting a crowd behind you. I think we were having the discussion on the way into the season. How is not having a crowd going to play a factor on this team? I mean, we saw it played a part in hampering the start of Malkin's season, but now that the fans are back, we're behind them. We're juiced. We're ready for playoff hockey.
Dougie, what do you think about this split? How important is it for the Pittsburgh Penguins to get home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs?
I think it's very important for them to get home ice advantage. I feel like this team plays better in front of their own fans, and they just play better in front of fans in general. I agree with what Horwat said with Malkin really gets it going whenever there's people in the seats, and I think that goes for several other players on the team as well. You know, Letang especially. And, that's the thing is, like, you need the home ice advantage. You need the fans in the stands. And as things continue to progress, I'd imagine that the capacity will start to rise. And we'll be as close to, like, fully rocking as they can be going into playoff hockey.
That's all we can hope for, and maybe even get a glimpse of a scattered gold out and gold rush game at the beginning of the playoffs. That's definitely something that would be a great image for everybody to see. And even coming home this week, the Penguins will face the Flyers on Thursday after a long layoff, but they'll have more fans in the stands, as you mentioned. As we progress here with COVID and the vaccination progress in the United States, they're going to start allowing more fans in the stands. Previously, it was 2,800. Now, as of a week ago, they're allowed to have 5,000 fans in the stands. So it's just going to get that much louder, that much more raucous. And I think the Penguins are going to just take that much more energy from it.
And that's going to be an awesome thing to see. I got not too much else. I mean, once the fans get in, we know it's going to be better.
Luckily enough, though, the Penguins have played well on the road as of late, including on this 6-game road trip that they just concluded in New Jersey. They were 4-2 in a road trip that went through MSG, TD Garden, and Prudential Center. Those are 3 places that the Penguins do not notoriously play well in. So the fact that they went 4-2 over this stretch, we already talked on last Thursday's episode about how the Penguins play in TD Garden and the curse being lifted. The Penguins winning back-to-back games in Prudential Center is almost more impressive, I would say. Don't you think, Dougie?
Yeah, I totally agree. That's the one thing that I think truly flies under the radar is how bad they can play in New Jersey. I know that, like, they're playing Boston over the past, 7 or 8 year stretch, kind of overshadowed that, but no less, it's great they were able to get 2 wins against the Devils and keep getting ready to move up in the standings, because that race to the finish is going to be crazy.
So let's get a little bit into the team itself right now. I know we've talked a little overall so far in the first 10 minutes here about the Penguins and where they sit in the standings, but as of right now, a big thing that has happened and a big development for the Pittsburgh Penguins is the return of Teddy Blueger. It's kind of been anticipated over the last week and a half with him skating fully in practices, but finally on Sunday we get him back into the lineup. He scores an assist on the first Sevier goal, and he plays on that 4th line. So what did you guys think about Blueger returning the lineup, and how big of an impact is that going to make? We'll start with Horwat.
I've said it multiple times before. Teddy Blueger is probably the most important player on this team because he plays the full length of the ice. He plays every inch. He didn't take the smartest penalty today with that puck over glass late, but it's interesting that that's a rarity for him, that sort of penalty, but it's not the first time he's done it this year. So you just hope that gets kicked. But a lot of the times, a penalty like that is pretty accidental. But he's one of the more important players on this team, hands down. So him being back in the lineup is huge by way of we have, that a new center depth bolstered again. Our penalty kill can start to get a little bit more back on track because he's a guy that's consistently always there. And he's able to continue to progress himself as an offensive threat in a way. What an even better part is the fact that Blueger's back in this lineup and Jankowski isn't. That's the fun part, is it not, boys?
Doug, yeah, I'll let you take that one because you're a massive Jankowski fan.
Yeah, that's big. Is like the fact that Jankowski is going to be seems like he's going to be pretty minimalized here, and who knows, he might even not be on the team in the next 24 hours. Who knows?
Yeah.
The big thing with them is these depth guys. They've come in and they've pushed out certain players that, I heard you guys use the term on the podcast before, like warm bodies, in a sense, where, like really Mark Jankowski, he's kind of a filler guy. Colton Sevier, even though he's been playing well recently, had 2-goal game this evening, is a filler guy, and you see guys like Frederick Gaudreau and Radim Zahorna come in and have such a big impact to the point that Coach Sullivan is going to start cutting certain players' minutes, and those guys are going to get a bigger opportunity to come in and help this team.
I don't think the importance of Teddy Blueger can be understated to this team. We talked about it when he first got injured following the first Boston game that ended up being back-to-back games of several bad injuries taken for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But him coming back into the lineup, we saw him play and kind of light up that fourth line, where Zahorna had been playing well. That fourth line had been playing pretty well, but now with Blueger and Zahorna, it brought Colton Sevier to life. He got a 2-goal game for the first time in multiple seasons. And really, you just notice the fact that even at the minimalist level, he is a great face-off guy. And the Penguins controlled the face-off dot tonight against the Devils massively. And Crosby, having somebody like Gaudreau, who has been great in the face-off dot lately, and now adding Teddy Blueger back to that lineup, that's one of the things that a lot of people have outlined that the Penguins have struggled with over this course of 10, 11 games where they've won the majority of them. People have still been pointing out, yeah, they lose a lot of faceoffs though, but getting a guy like Blueger back is huge for that, and also huge for their penalty killing, because even though it has been pretty good since he's been out, adding him in is only going to make it better.
Yeah, and faceoffs was definitely an issue we've been having. Gaudreau going 11-1 the other night was pretty incredible. I mean, yeah, that's not a ton of faceoffs. I mean, I think Crosby's numbers are usually triple that. But Crosby's also taking every draw he can get. And even sometimes, Crosby doesn't get those important faceoff wins. That's something I not noticed today, but really thought about while watching today's game. It was that sometimes in those important situations, I see Crosby step in, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, you can, but I want the sure shot. I feel like Teddy Blueger in the faceoff dot is the sure shot there. Or more of the, I guess.
That's a fair point. Sidney Crosby's faceoff percentage this season is still kind of ridiculous how good it is. And there was a post made by the Penguins PR Twitter page, which is an underrated Twitter follow. If you don't follow them, you should definitely follow them, because they throw some really cool stats up there with some good infographics, and they highlighted Sidney Crosby's play on both ends of the ice this season and really said, Selke votes anyone? And for the second straight season, not even the second straight season, because last year he did struggle a little bit, but 2 years ago he got serious consideration for the Selke, and this year he might be well on his way to doing that again.
Yeah, but we know how that's going to go. It's just going to be Patrice Bergeron again. Jean Couturier will be in there. Come on, we know how this voting
Ryan
goes.
O'Reilly.
Yep, that's the last one. I think it would be interesting this year for the awards. I know this is kind of iceberging the conversation, but I think it'd be interesting this year if they picked a nominee from each of the divisions, because you could only play in your division. It kind of opens it up a little more. It'd be interesting. Maybe do 2 rounds of voting in it. I don't know. This is just a thought process I've had and have completely derailed the podcast.
Well, I mean, that's not a bad idea. The only issue with that is I know a lot of people are going to vote. Well, a lot of people are always going to vote for Connor McDavid for Hart. And I feel like Austin Matthews has a horse in that race this year. And if you go one per division, somebody there is going to get taken out. It's probably going to be Matthews. And Toronto's not going to be happy about that.
Well, they can cry into their Nick Foligno money, okay?
Oh my. We can talk about that a little bit later in the trade deadline segment, because I know Dougie, as he said, this is his Christmas. So once we get to the trade deadline segment later, we're just going to let the reins loose and say, Doug, what do you got for us? But Dougie, I do have a poignant question for you, and it's about the Zucker, McCann, Rodriguez line, which is currently sitting as the Penguins' second line. But as we all know, Kasperi Kapanen and Evgeny Malkin still out with injury. Malkin finally skating again. What would you do with that line once Gino and Cappy come back?
I would make it be your third one. I think that is the first combination of like a line that they've had since the HBK line that has the potential to do what the HBK line did. That's why I'm like really big into like the trade stuff right now. I honestly really want the Penguins to trade for a top 9 or top 6 quality left winger to play with Malkin and Kapanen, so that we can keep Zucker, McCann, and Rodriguez together, because they've been so good. Jared McCann has really improved at center since Malkin's injury. And I think that he's proven to the coaching staff and the organization that he's not only is he really good as a left winger, but he's probably better suited to this team as that third line center, because it's so hard to find one. I mean, we've known this. We've been looking for a third line center since, the Derek Brassard trade. And that was 3 years ago. So why not just fill it internally with McCann, run with it, and stick with what's working?
And I agree with you perfectly. I literally put that down in my notes today. I said, why don't we just bump that line down wholesale to the third line, have Malkin and Cappy come back on the same line, and I would honestly stick Tanev there if he was able to get healthy. But as you were talking, we have an update from Coach Mike Sullivan on the injury front. Freddie Gaudreau left the game with a lower body injury. He will be evaluated when they get back to Pittsburgh. So the injury news just keeps coming for the Penguins, even when we think we're having kind of a good day. And we've said it so many times on the podcast the last couple of weeks. Leave a penny, take a penny. We got Teddy Bluger back. We should have expected somebody was going to go out with an injury. And right now it's Freddie G's turn. He's going to be out for who knows how long. We don't even know how the injury is. But
yeah,
left the game with an injury. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, that could be anything. I just kind of noticed it while Dougie here was talking, and I've been trying to catch up on a couple things. But yeah, that one hurts, especially considering I made some pretty bold statements already. I mean, we don't play for 3 days, so maybe he's able to – maybe it's not much and it's able to be recovered quickly. But, again, it's undisclosed. We'll just have to see. It's going to be evaluated tomorrow, I guess. And then they have practices Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe, going into Thursday. So we got time, and that news will unfold as the week goes on.
Perfect. Well, Horwat, both me and Dougie have spoke on that line. I want you to just toss in what you think about that line. Both of us have kind of said and agreed that if that was our third line, we'd be pretty set if we're the Pittsburgh Penguins. What do you think about that?
Who are the people on that line one more time?
Zucker, McCann, and Rodriguez. Just the second line we have now, bumping them down to 3.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good, solid line, especially having a scoring threat that can having a scoring threat on pretty much every line is really nice, and McCann and Zucker fit that mold perfectly, where Rodriguez is a tool guy who can literally go anywhere. He's just the utility player. You don't really staple a position to him. It's like, I can't think of a good comparison, but he's like a utility player in baseball. He plays every position. I'm sure the Pirates have had a couple of those players over the years, and we thought were going to work out. But
yeah, like Sean Rodriguez.
Yeah, there we go. That's the one.
Literally made the comparison like a week ago, buddy. You must be tired. We will give you a break on that one. I know. Sean, like I said, a utility player from baseball like Sean Rodriguez is perfect, whereas Evan Rodriguez is a guy that can go anywhere. You don't staple a position to him. He's not going to get you the most points. He's not going to make the prettiest plays, but he's going to hold a line together, battle as hard as he can every day in and day out, battle hard on the puck, and just get his nose dirty, which is what he does. And on a line like that, where McCann and Zucker aren't necessarily known for being the harder guys, having a little bit of grit on that line with those 3 would be really nice.
It's just weird saying Rodriguez, as much as he is a tool guy, and I've really opened up to him this year, I'd still have to get used to it. That's for sure.
And it's funny because at the beginning of this season, everybody was against Evan Rodriguez, and I know I was as well. So I am not amiss from this statement that I'm about to make, but everybody was against Evan Rodriguez, probably partially because of where he was in the lineup.
Yeah.
Playing with Sidney Crosby, especially when Kapanen finally came back to the lineup and they persisted to have Evan Rodriguez with Sidney Crosby. I think that just escalated the hatred for Rodriguez, and there was hatred. I'm not going to say there wasn't, because you could see on Penn's Twitter, people did not like him being on that line. And now we see him on this second line in this supporting role and saying, listen, Evan Rodriguez would be a great third liner for this team. Everything would be Millhouse if we could have a healthy enough lineup to have him be on the third line. But it's weird, the shift in that, because he hasn't picked up that many more points than he was when he was on the top line with Crosby. But it's just the way that he's playing with guys that are closer to his expected talent level. People expected Evan Rodriguez to bring what Kasperi Kapanen brings, and he's not going to do that because he's not Kasperi Kapanen. And that's unfair to just label him as being close to the level of Kasperi Kapanen. But Evan Rodriguez is a guy that molds to what the team needs, and he does it to the best of his ability. And I think he's done that terrifically in a second line role right now. And I also think the addition of him being on McCann's wing. Listen, McCann has been wing, center. We don't know how it's going to work. Can he take the responsibilities as a center? Well, this takes a little bit of the pressure off McCann, because if he can't play center, then Rodriguez can jump in there and McCann can go back to wing. And it's just something to make everybody on that line comfortable. So I really like that line as it is right now. I think they're playing extremely well. And I think it's going to be a massive help for the Pittsburgh Penguins to be able to trust a line like this and then just basically inject another full line on the second line whenever everybody that's injured gets back to healthy, hopefully by the end of the season, which we would expect.
Yeah. Doug?
Yeah, I'm with that. What were you saying?
I'm just saying I'm in full agreement with it. I see where it's coming from, yeah.
Yeah.
The one last thing I did want to mention before we cut to break and get into the trade deadline talk is Cody Ceci, because the show on AT&T Sports Net tonight highlighted the fact that he leads the team in plus minus, and we've all been kind of outspoken on what we think of the plus minus stat. And both me and Horwat agree that if it's ridiculous to one way or the other, that's when you bring it up. Well, he's leading the team, so I feel like he deserves us to bring it up here. Mm-hmm. He's a plus 15 this season. And
do you have everyone else's?
I don't, but he's leading the team with a plus 15. And remembering at the beginning of the season, whenever we had just signed him and we looked at this and we said, how did we switch Schultz and Johnson for Ceci and Matheson? It's better, but can it be that much better? Cody Ceci alone has blown that out of the water. If we compare Cody Ceci to what Justin Schultz brought to the table for the Penguins last season, it's not even close. Cody Ceci's puck movement, his defensive responsibility, the way that he's able to clear his own net front, even though he doesn't do it perfectly, he does it better than most of the players on the Penguins right now, at least defense-wise. And then, yes, Mike Matheson can be a train wreck, but is he as much of a train wreck as Jack Johnson is? I know that offensively he is 100 times better. So the Penguins, if you look at it now, 42 games into the season, if you're asking the question, did they upgrade their third pairing from last season? The answer is 150% yes. Doug, what do you think about the way that Cody Ceci has played this season on a one-year deal, no less?
Very, very surprising. There's that running joke in football that Tom Brady was a system quarterback. Cody Ceci might, honest to God, be a system defenseman, because this is just like a fantastic, renaissance for him. And I wouldn't say that he replaced Schultz and that Max replaced Jack Johnson. I would say it's the other way around, just in terms of like the style they play and the roles that they play. I think for whatever reason they play really well together. I can't put my finger on it, but yeah, there's the occasional Mike Matheson hiccup, but that gets made up every single time. He just makes his own entry himself and dekes out a goalie, But it's kind of bad when we're in a spot where I trust Matheson and Ceci more than I trust Pedersen and John Marino. It's like a good thing and a bad thing. But honestly, like, it's crazy with where they're at in terms of the defense because of how much of a grave concern that was for not even just last year in the bubble or like last year before the stoppage, but like I would say a good 2 or 3 years. We were very worried about the defense beyond the Dumoulin-Letang pairing, and we didn't know how the rest of the lineup was going to shake out on defense. So this is big.
Yeah, it's especially if you bring up the last couple of years, because we had Johnson and Schultz. We at least still had belief in Schultz for a little while, but then you also got to remember the guys we brought in. Eric Branson was on our team at one point. The downfall of Oli Mata hit us all like a ton of bricks, and I can't remember more names, but like just those guys that have had to play filler roles in our lineup. This is a problem we've had that dates back to the days of Robert Bortuzzo being on our team. We usually always have our top 2 guys, and then you kind of just wonder what the hell's going on with the bottom 4 there, the last 2 pairings. So it's really interesting, and it's a great point to make that we finally have something that looks decent in all 6 defensive positions, and it's something to look at as a good thing. Yeah, it's not ideal having John Marino and Marcus Pedersen be the 3rd pairing, and you're a little more scared with them on the ice than you are with Matheson and Ceci, but if it's all working and it's all clicking, and then it's all working and all clicking, and then there's not too much to worry about. Do you want me to read off some of these plus minuses, by the way?
Yeah, go for it.
So this is from Hockey Reference and not fully updated, so this is just before today's game. You mentioned Cody Ceci leading with 15. Chris Letang has 13 before tonight, so he'd be second. Kasperi Kapanen with 12. Brandon Tanev with 12. Brian Dumoulin with 12. That's all the pluses I'll read, but I'll get into the minuses. Jason Zucker is winning the green jacket, the old Masters of the -8. Figured it's Masters Sunday, I'd bring up the lowest one right now. Although I think that may have changed. Did that change today? Did he get a plus anywhere?
I'm not sure because his line didn't score any goals. The
All
first
right.
line accounted for 3 of the goals, and then the 4th line accounted for the other 2.
Yeah, so that's not ideal for Zucker, but yeah, he's the old green jacket winner this year so far.
Also, a quick congratulations to Hideki Matsuyama. He's who won the Masters, right? First,
yes, sir.
He's born golfer to win a major tournament in the PGA. That's a really cool thing. So congratulations to him. My pick of Brooks Koepka was dead in the water about 2 days ago, so I won't get too much into that. But no, I like what you bring up there with the defense. And both of you guys mentioned Pedersen and Marino and the fact that those are technically being deployed as our last pairing. And as of late, Pedersen has played a lot better, and so has John Marino. So it is starting to come together for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And if you look at the foundation of the way that they've played in these last couple of weeks and what has catapulted them to damn near first place in the division, it's been a strong defensive game. And even from their forwards being able to crash the zone and just kind of suffocate teams in the neutral zone, it's something that they've done extremely well as of late. And it's something that you saw them try to revert to in tonight's game against the New Jersey Devils, and it working in the 3rd period to an extent. Yeah, in the 2nd period, the Devils were able to kind of control the pace of play, but even though they had so many more shots and so many more opportunities than the Penguins in that 2nd period, there weren't many grade A chances. The Penguins were able to keep them to the outside and keep Casey DeSmith, but Tristan Jarry relatively clean, other than that one opportunity that Jarry had against Sharangovich right in front of the net where he just robs him with the glove hand. So that was fantastic. But I want to wrap up our discussion on the Penguins as of right now and the games that has happened. But any last thoughts on tonight's game or this road trip as a whole? We'll start with Dougie.
The only thing that I want to say over like the past couple of games is, and I don't know if you guys have covered this in past episodes, but whenever everybody comes back, Jared McCann needs to stay on the top power play unit.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all I got.
All right.
We have discussed that a little bit. We mentioned it very briefly, and both of us stating that obviously Evgeny Malkin is going to be a guy that comes onto the top power play, but it's going to come down to McCann or Rust. And it's hard to take Rust off with the way he's been shooting the puck too, but McCann on that power play, that production's there as well. So it's going to be a tough decision for Sullivan.
Or Reardon, whoever's creating the lineups, but
Yeah,
still, I think it just depends. We'll see how they feel going into it when everyone's back. I mean, if everyone's able to kind of have a chemistry and be on the same page, I mean, you could even go back and forth a little, play some real free-form hockey, and just kind of throw guys out there. I don't know. This is why I'm not a coach, but if we have that many shooters, you got something to look at.
So, Dougie, you had something to say there. I didn't want to cut you off before you said anything.
Yeah, you're good. The difficult thing for Sully and Reardon, I think, is going to be just like the player management of it whenever everybody comes back with the power play, because McCann should stay there, but he should also stay in that left point spot, which has been occupied by Malkin for years. So I don't know, that would, obviously Malkin's going to stay on the top unit. McCann would take Russ' spot, and do you play Malkin at the right half wall? At that point, do you put him at that right wing spot, let him just kind of bomb it from the right half wall?
That's where he scored the majority of his power play goals. At least off the top of my head, that's where you think of Evgeny Malkin scoring on the power play. So you would think that leads to probably the most success, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would agree. That's how I feel about it. And the big thing that I think they need to start doing is try to run that power play setup the Maple Leafs run, where Marner is constantly feeding it to Matthews right in that little pocket in the middle of the slot, and it's like dynamite for them. And with how good Sid is working it down low, I see no reason why he wouldn't be able to feed McCann, Gensel, or Malkin for goals like that on the power play.
It would certainly add another element to the Penguins' power play right now, which is, to be honest, been pretty hot as of late. Of course, they picked up another goal late in their power play earlier today with a beautiful play of passing, finishing with a Gensel goal, taking advantage of Lindy Ruff's mistake to challenge the goal late in the second period. So the Penguins' power play is doing really well. You don't want to change too much, I think, if it's starting to work, because you don't want to tinker what's not broken, because the Penguins' power play has been broken for a while this season. So the fact that they're finally starting to get it together, I don't know if they're going to introduce anything too much, but I could see in the future, if you were able to perfect something of what the Maple Leafs are doing, I think the Penguins do. I agree with you. The Penguins have the players to do it, but I'm just not sure Reardon is going to want to implement that this late into a season whenever he's finally getting his power play to have some form of success.
Do the Leafs do the drop? Do they drop pass on their way in?
No, it was what they do is it was a lot similar to the Evan Rodriguez power play goal right off the faceoff, where Letang got it, where they won the draw. Letang got it, and then Zucker was kind of like that pulley man behind Letang, and then he fed it down to Rust.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, Horwat, I know why you asked that, because both of us go crazy when we see that drop back and those drop passes on the breakout for the Penguins.
Zone entry.
Yeah, their zone entry could use a lot of work, but it's unfortunately still a big portion of the Todd Reardon power play. But we're going to take a quick break right now. When we return, we will be talking trade deadline talk. I know Dougie is chomping at the bit to talk a little bit about the deadline. So we will be right back after a quick break. Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by the Hockey Podcast Network. My name is Nick Brlansky, along with Nick Horwat and Doug Glattke, here on this fine Sunday evening, talking Pittsburgh Penguins on trade deadline eve, almost like Christmas Eve. It is Christmas Eve if your name is Doug Glattke. So, Dougie, my first question for you is, what have you thought so far of a somewhat subpar lead up to the big day?
I mean, I'm just very surprised at what some of these guys are going for, like the paying rate. It's crazy to me that the most expensive player on the trade market so far this year was Nick Foligno. That just blows me away. Both Foligno and Savard. But the big reason that is because, you got that third team in there. You got to pilfer money because Tampa and Toronto are both so strapped to the cap. But, the big one that was surprising to me was John Merrill. He only went for, I think, a 5th-round pick today. And he was such a good – he was one of Detroit's most important defensemen this year. You would have thought that they would have been able to get at least a third out of him with how good he was. And Montreal really, that was a big steal for them. That was a good trade.
It was a 5th and an AHL/junior player named Hayden Verbeek.
So that's not much at all.
Yeah, for John Merrill. That's not much.
And the Canadiens are a team that, well, we saw them last season look a lot better than we expected, and then they added a whole lot since that small series the Penguins played them in the play-ins. You have to think about the fact that they have Toffoli, they have Anderson, they got Corey Perry, and then they also just went out and got somebody else besides John Merrill, but I'm blanking on who it was. Eric Stahl as well. So they've really changed their lineup from a team that was pretty competitive last year in the postseason.
Yeah, they're good. They look like they can be really good. They're using Kotkaniemi and Suzuki in, I think, second and third line capacities, and they still have Phil Danault. So they're loaded at center. Eric Stahl, I think, is playing with Corey Perry on the 4th line right now. That's a scary team if they're able to just keep themselves afloat for the rest of the year and make it in as that 4th spot in the North Division. Let's
jump to a little bit of Penguins talk here, because on this fine Sunday, as I said it was, the Penguins had a little bit of a scare, at least by my accords, as about midway through the day, a couple hours before puck drop against the New Jersey Devils, we had news that Pierre-Olivier Joseph was scratched from the AHL game for the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Penguins, and no explanation was given at the time. So we had to sit there and watch that. And with the proximity to the trade deadline day, you almost felt like, okay, maybe a move is coming. Maybe it includes POJ and it's for a bigger player, or maybe it's a defenseman on the Bro team right now and POJ is just getting a call up. Who knows what's going to happen? And then a couple of minutes later, we get news from Elliot Friedman on Twitter. He breaks news of a trade between the Penguins and the Ducks for, wait for it, not Ricardo Raquel, Nick Delorier, the 4th liner, scrappy guy with 4 goals and 4 assists on the season, kind of a lower level Colton Sevier, if not just an adjacent level Colton Sevier. And the Penguins Twitter just completely blows up because nobody was ever thinking about Nicolas Delorier, and nobody was happy with the trade for Nicolas Delorier. I'm not too against the guy. I just don't think he fits in with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm not sure he fits in with many teams right now that are going for a playoff spot. But luckily, about an hour later, Elliot Friedman posts again, kind of an update. Deal is not done. They're working on it. And then we find out, okay, P.O. Joseph, after the game, Taylor Hassey from DK Pittsburgh Sports says POJ missed the game because of illness. So kind of taking him out of the trade speculation for a time being. Then we find Delorier's in the lineup for the Ducks. And then we find, okay, the Penguins and the Ducks were talking, but are no longer talking. A deal is not likely to happen before the deadline tomorrow. The Delorier talk is stalled out and is done. To me, that is a breath of fresh air because I don't want to give anything up for a player like Nick Delorier. I don't think he adds enough for the Pittsburgh Penguins right now, and he certainly doesn't add enough to warrant giving up an asset to me. Let's start with Dougie, because you were texting me throughout this whole thing, and you had several choice words about this whole saga. What were your thoughts throughout the day as this progression that I just explained happened on Twitter?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I was shaking in my boots because after the win in Boston, I put out my typical "this is going to be one hell of a ride" tweet, and Hockey Troll replied to me and said, "You say this every year." And I said, for whatever reason, Nick Delorier was in my head. I said, watch, they're going to trade for Nick Delorier and screw the whole thing up. And I was like, this can't be happening. This can't be coming to fruition right now. But the thing that was most scary was he's not a rental. He has an extra year of term at $1 million. And it's a guy that really doesn't even fit our lineup when they're this injured. Also, breaking news: Mike Riley just got traded to Boston.
Well, they're going to need something after the way that they just got rocked by the Washington Capitals tonight.
Call that boat raced.
Yeah, but back to Delorier, though. That was a head scratcher. I'm glad that the talk stalled out because with the going rate for players right now, I think the Penguins can get in the mix a lot more than people were anticipating them to. I think that they could get a quality player, somebody who could play with Malkin or Kapanen, or just play in a third line capacity and be a contributor. Because, you know, the big rumor right now is that Taylor Hall is not going to get a first round pick in return. He's not going to yield a first round pick in return for Buffalo. And I'm not saying that it's possible, but like when that's something that when that's going on, I feel like you have to at least check in and see what the price actually is.
You got to give a call, right?
You have to.
That's kind of how we always look at things. Remember, I think it was last year whenever we all thought Letang was on the trade block, or Malcolm was, or someone. It was just no. He's literally just asking other GMs if he was out there, what would the return be? That's something you could easily do with in that situation here as well. Just kind of, Taylor Hall's out there, and you're just kind of going, so what is the asking price exactly?
Listen, when it comes to Taylor Hall, he is clearly not had a great season because he's clearly not playing on a good team. It would be so much fun to kind of harken back to the days of Ray Shero where we see the big name trade deadline target and we get the big name trade deadline target. And the fact that he's not going to get a first round pick when Nick Foligno did is kind of ridiculous. It kind of makes me feel like I'm not sure what Kyle Dubas is looking at in Nick Foligno unless Nick Foligno goes out and scores a goal a game. And we're just completely shocked. That seemed like an overpay. I don't want to judge on that, mainly because I haven't watched the Maple Leafs. I don't know what they're missing. I haven't watched the Blue Jackets that much this year, so I don't even know what Nick Foligno is going to bring to the table this season. But knowing based on his history, yeah, he's a little bit grittier, which is something that the Maple Leafs could use. I sound like old man watches hockey using the word grit, but I abide by it anyway. And I don't know. I felt like that was an overpay, and I feel like Taylor Hall has just lost so much value by playing in that black hole of an organization this year that the fact that he's not going to fetch a first round pick, which seemed like it seemed like one of the few guarantees in life at the beginning of the season that the Sabres were going to trade Taylor Hall for a first round pick at some point in this campaign. And now the fact that they might not even get that before the trade deadline is kind of astonishing.
Yeah. But real quick before we continue, while you just rail your knee into the shelf there, Doug, did me and you both look at the same tweet? Did we both have that reaction to that?
Are you talking about Jeff Carter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by it right now. I don't really know how to process
So,
it.
Brlansky, from the top rope out of retirement, Bob McKenzie tweets, could veteran center Jeff Carter be on his way to Pittsburgh? Los Angeles Kings and Pittsburgh have had discussions on that and are believed to be working towards making that happen.
I mean, Ron Hextall, if he wants to undo anything Jim Rutherford did, the younger, faster angle, that would be a surefire attack on all of that. But I don't know, Jeff Carter, he still has a good shot, and I don't really know what more he brings. I know the Penguins were talking to the Kings about Alex Iafallo earlier in the week, but maybe they broke down the talks for Iafallo, and they said, you know what, we have a lightly used Jeff Carter, if you would be interested. And I'm not sure what the return for that would be. Maybe a lightly chewed pack of gum, but I'm open to it, I guess. I don't know. We both mentioned on the last episode that we like seeing new players, and I don't know. Something to that feels to me like last year with Marleau. I don't know. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
Doug, you go ahead and start it. I'm just seeing what else is up.
All right. So if they were going to go for one of the veteran guys from the Kings, I thought for sure it was going to be Dustin Brown because he's been doing really good this year. He's had decent numbers, big power forward. We know, at least in the past, early on in his career, or at the peak of his career, he was able to fight. I mean, he could really throw him. But Jeff Carter's interesting. He has this year and next year left on his contract at a $5.27 million cap hit. And one would have to imagine that the Kings would retain 50% of that. And I could easily see a third team get involved to, broker some money here.
They would almost have to because the Penguins have damn near negative cap space right now. Or you would have to imagine something is going back that has a relatively decent number.
Yeah, this is a wild one. I just want to know where Bob McKenzie got this one from the retirement home. Not that he's that old, but I mean, should I say from the beaches?
Shade to Bob McKenzie right now.
In no shade. I mean, it was from the top rope out of retirement. I mean, what? I mean, yeah, I guess you still have your sources, but
listen, for another reference of the times right now, Bob McKenzie to trade deadline is like Undertaker to WrestleMania. It's just that time of the year where he just pops out of nowhere to make his presence felt.
Yeah, I mean, and this one might be a 2-day affair, just like this year's.
I mean, there hasn't been anything before. So today, all this news that we've gotten during this episode, and then tomorrow is going to be crazy. So hopefully, if not, this is the first time I've been off of work for a trade deadline day in my life. Watch it be nothing, and I just sit there staring at my phone with no updates.
This one already feels busier than last year.
I'm not saying something.
Yeah. So
but
we'll keep our eyes on Twitter for the rest of this recording too, apparently.
Yeah, I guess that's something that we're going to need to do. I mean, Alex Iafallo is somebody who me and Doug talked about a little bit earlier in the weekend whenever those rumors first started popping off. And I was like, you know what? I don't hate that. He's a guy that helps out the Pittsburgh Penguins. He can play up and down the lineup. And he's a guy that right now I haven't seen his name thrown out there a lot. So maybe the price tag isn't going to be too hefty. Jeff Carter is completely out of left field, but it seems as if the Penguins general manager, Ron Hextall, is keen to calling back his former places of employment because there was also talk with him and Scott Lawton possibly being a match earlier in the week. Dougie, what do you think about Scotty Lawton? I know he's somebody who you also circled early on as well.
I feel like Scott Lawton would check a lot of boxes for the Penguins, and at least at this point, would probably be a more viable option than Jeff Carter because Scott Lawton's a lot younger. And the nice thing about Lawton is he's super physical. Like you guys, I mean, we've seen it over the years. Every single time he's playing the Penguins or the Capitals, he's always in the mix. And he's a damn good third line center. I think that he would be the closest thing you could get on the trade market to a Nick Bonino type of player, where he's like gritty in the sense of he's going to block shots relentlessly and do everything he can to help the team win. That would have to probably be a 3-team deal as well. But I mean, I'd love to have him here. I think that he'd be a perfect fit. And another person from Philadelphia that I saw some tweets about potentially being shopped or available is Nolan Patrick. And who knows what the price is on that. If I'm wrong, I would look into it because to get somebody that young to be your third line center or potentially a top 9 winger option would be interesting. But I'd be surprised if they move him. That would be a mistake on Philadelphia's end, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
To give up a player that young. Yeah.
While we continue it, I have one more tweet. This isn't much, but it's from Dan Kingerski, who has commented on the Jeff Carter thing, but then went on to say sources told his plays Pittsburgh Hockey Now that the Penguins have also inquired about Ryan Getzlaf and are waiting to hear if he's available tomorrow.
Didn't we already go down this road of getting people Sidney Crosby like?
Yeah, and
we really need to do this again?
Yeah, the rest of the tweet was the pending UFA could re-sign with Anaheim in the summer. So he's in the last year of his deal. That one would be, I think, at the bottom of the list out of all of these is Getzlaf.
Yeah, I'd take Carter over Getzlaf as of right now.
Yeah, that's a wild one. keep your eyes on Twitter, everyone. If you're still watching us live, there's about to be a storm.
There's definitely something brewing for trade deadline day. Dougie, anything else you wanted to bring up? I mean, first of all, before we do that, the Nolan Patrick thing, I forgot I didn't even kind of talk about that. Is Nolan Patrick is so young and so talented. He was a second overall pick. Why would you give up on that? Yeah, I get that the Flyers have kind of played their way out of a playoff spot for this year, and it's crazy because if you asked about 3 weeks ago, the Predators were probably the biggest sellers, and the Flyers were not even thought to be a seller. But now the Predators aren't selling anything. If anything, they might buy a piece or two because they're close to a playoff spot. And the Philadelphia Flyers have dropped so fast that they're also out as well. Like they're out and they're getting ready to sell. But I don't see the Nolan Patrick thing. With the age of their core, Nolan Patrick is the next wave for them. Him and Travis Konechny should lead the next wave for the Philadelphia Flyers. So to trade him away at this stage of his career would be asinine on Philly's part. So if it happens, I'm going to laugh my head off. And if it doesn't happen, I'm just going to say, you know what? That was probably the smart move.
Yeah, I agree. But I also thought about this in the back of my mind as you were talking, Brlansky. Maybe it's an expansion draft thing. Maybe they think that they have too many players that need protected to protect Nolan Patrick. You got to think of it this way. Konechny's going to get protected. Oscar Lindblom's going to get protected. Obviously, Couturier, Giroux, Jake Voracek, guys like that will get protected. And then I think you have JVR on a full no move. And I bet Kevin Hayes has a no trade in there as well, just based on the term of his contract. And those are guys that by default, unless you get them to agree to be exposed, you would have to protect.
Ooh, yeah, that is something I didn't even think about. I keep forgetting that the expansion draft is coming up after this season just because of how much of a roller coaster the regular season has been. But that's what a lot is going to go into the trade deadline, is people prepping for that, especially the teams that are on the outside looking in and aren't really looking to get into a playoff spot as of right now. So that is a very good point that I hadn't even thought of. And the Flyers are going to definitely be in a pickle there. The Penguins, not as bad as the Flyers in that case, but the Penguins are going to have a tough time with the expansion draft this time around as well. Horwat, I don't know if you saw something on Twitter, but you've been kind of flopping around over there. So what's going on?
I've had my ears on you guys and my eyes on Twitter. This is a fun one. Toronto's absolutely going all in by acquiring goaltender David Rittich.
Big save, Dave. Wow, did Calgary give up already?
I guess so. And this, by the way, is all but packing Freddie Anderson's bags, right?
Yeah, I was very shocked to see that he almost went earlier in the week. But the fact that Freddie Anderson, I never would have been able to call the fact that Jack Campbell was going to steal Freddie Anderson's job this soon.
Jack Campbell's also 11-0 right now.
Well, he is, but before the season, I would have never thought of that.
Not one bit. The Leafs have been a weird. The Leafs are a team that you look at and you figure this team kind of should be a tire fire, just because they have so many great players, but are in a very bad division.
Yeah,
but then that's probably how they're picking up all these wins. But still, they're playing phenomenal hockey right now, and picking up David Rittich, who could be a starter, but who knows? Yeah, I mean, I remember I was angry at the Calgary Flames last year for not starting him in the playoffs. 2 years in a row, I was angry with him about it because he was the one that was getting them wins, and they lost in the first round because they weren't playing him. So, yeah, this David Rittich thing, he could go up there and maybe be a starter in a way. Calgary is also retaining 50% of it.
Jeez.
So, yeah, Toronto's they're building up for that first round loss this year, aren't they?
They really are. And here's the thing with Toronto. If they can get rid of Freddie Anderson, and it's weird to say they can get rid of him because he's still a very good goaltender, but if they can unload Freddie Anderson's contract and still have good goaltending to at least a modicum of the level that he provided for them over the past 5-6 seasons, that is such a great thing for them because they were going to be in deep trouble having to re-sign Freddie coming up and still being able to be competitive because Freddie had been, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit of Maple Leafs goaltending the past half decade, really the entire Matthews era. So the fact that they're able to kind of move on from that and help themselves to a little bit of a better cap situation, that is a luck out for Kyle Dubas and the gang.
Yep. Going into the playoffs with some space. I'm assuming they're not able to move him this year, but he'll probably be on LTIR for the rest of the year in Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to go into they're going to head into the playoffs with a David Rittich and undefeated Jack Campbell.
Well, might not be undefeated by the time the playoffs roll around. Otherwise, that'd be crazy to go the whole season being undefeated. But
yeah,
there's only like 16 games left in the season.
And they're bringing in David Rittich, so we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, the big thing about Freddie, though, that makes me think they could potentially unload him is his cap hit is $5 million, but his contract was so front loaded at the beginning of the deal that his salary for this year, I think, is only $2 million. So like they could offload that to a team that, maybe just wants to have a goalie or recoup an asset in some sense. And the ownership really doesn't have to worry about paying Freddie big money because it's a $2 million salary and most of that has already been paid by the Maple Leafs.
Send Freddie Anderson back to Anaheim. Let John Gibson go up to Seattle. There we go. The NHL wins. Interesting. I just want John Gibson to go to a good team. That's my only hope in that. But before we go to our last segment, I do want to ask this because this is the last chance that we're going to get to talk to you folks, the listeners, before the trade deadline. We're going to finish it with a definitive yes or no. Should the Penguins make a move? I say no, they should probably stand pat. Horwat, you've been on the no train for a while. What do you say right now? Last-ditch effort. What do you say right before the deadline?
Yeah, I'm still saying no. I was a lot more confident in it last week, but yeah, it's definitely a no still for me. It is a no from me, sir.
Dougie, what do you think? Should they make a move or should they hold pat?
As much as I want them to make a move, I want to say no because the players that they've been in on the past 6 hours have been horrifying.
It's kind of gotten worse. I don't know how you could get worse from almost acquiring Nick Delorier, but Ryan Getzlaf, we say Jeff Carter is lightly used. Ryan Getzlaf, I don't even want to finish that statement because it's not rated PG. But like,
he's definitely not certified pre-owned, is what you're saying.
Correct. That is scrapyard stuff right there.
Oh goodness.
So, Dougie, you say no as well?
Yeah, I'm going to say no, just for our own good.
Well, there you have it. From the tip of the iceberg, featuring Doug Glattke, the Penguins better not make a move or else we're going to have to jump on again tomorrow night and just yell about it because the last 6 hours have not produced very many good target names for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But we're going to take a quick break. When we return, our weekly Pens poll. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the tip of the iceberg, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network. Horwat, for about the 12th time, has sent me a tweet when I was just about to get back onto it, but I will look at that in a second.
Okay.
We're at the Tip of the Iceberg podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network. Nick Brlansky, Nick Horwat, featuring Dougie Glattke. We have our Pens poll, and let me check this tweet from Bob McKenzie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jeff Carter is officially a Pittsburgh Penguin, according to Bob McKenzie. So I don't think we can get to our Pens poll as of yet. This episode has been crazy, and the turns just keep on coming. Jeff Carter, a Pittsburgh Penguin. Horwat, why did you not just come out and just stop me? And you sent that to me and had the anticipation build. Jeff Carter to the Penguins. Wow. I could not have imagined that in my wildest dreams. I'm glad we caught that on live.
Yeah.
But, yeah, lightly used Jeff Carter to the Penguins. We're going to wait. I don't know if we're going to be able to wait out to see the return on live, but let's go around. We talked a little bit about the potential. Now that he's actually a Pittsburgh Penguin, does anybody want to change their opinions on Jeff Carter? Dougie, we'll start with you.
All right, so I'm going to go to a tweet here. I've seen some very good visuals while on with you guys. He still has a really good expected goals for percentage. I think he looks like he can be very effective 5-on-5 still. And as a potential third line center, I think that's all you need, right? Is for him to just be effective 5-on-5. I'd imagine he's not going to kill penalties. I think your guys on the PK will probably be, at least at center, would be Teddy Bluger and potentially Freddie G if he's healthy. But my goodness, guys, this is a wide left turn, isn't it?
This one is definitely out of left field, because it's a name that we have not discussed before.
Exactly.
The IFLO discussion happened for a minute. The Ricard Raquel happened for a little bit. Hell, early in the season, the John Gibson talk happened for a minute.
Yeah.
This is one that really never kind of crossed our minds and didn't cross our paths. And now all of a sudden, hey, this guy. It's like when Marlowe happened. That came out of nowhere. It's not exactly like what Marlowe happened because that was a bit of a different story and a bit more of an atrocity. But it's just one of those guys that's just out of nowhere. No one's paying attention to it. And then, boom, there it is. It's happening. I mean, we also only have 2 tweets from Bob McKenzie, by the way. Let's not fully say it's happened. But those are, I mean, that's a pretty reputable source that we're just going to keep our eye on and see if more happens. But, well, damn.
Yeah, that is definitely something that came straight out of left field, not something that I was expecting whenever we logged on to start this episode of the Tip of the Iceberg. But the Penguins, I mean, Bob McKenzie's usually very reputable. And what are the odds that in the same day the Penguins had confirmed a trade that was wrong and Elliot Friedman was wrong and Bob McKenzie was wrong about a trade to the Penguins too. So I would imagine, especially the fact that he tweeted that Jeff Carter is saying his goodbyes to his friends and mates. I think that is just 100% set in stone then. So Jeff Carter is coming to the Penguins. And actually I have Jordy Cunningham coming on the show right now. He's working on getting his stuff set up to talk a little bit about this trade. I know we were getting ready to talk about our Pens poll, and literally, let me actually bring up our Pens poll right now because this is quite perfect, to be completely honest. Our Pens poll last week was, which area do you want to see GM Ron Hextall address before the trade deadline next week? I'm not going to say who lost. Bottom 6 center won with 42%, and that is exactly what Ron Hextall just acquired. Thankfully, he moved away from Nick Delorier and got a guy like Jeff Carter, who has 8 goals on the season, which is not a low number for a bottom 6 center. And honestly, yeah, he's a little bit older. Dougie, did you say his contract earlier? I can't remember.
He has this year and next, and it's a weird number, but it basically rounds out to $5.27 million.
So we definitely have to keep track of how the Penguins respond when it comes to salary cap stuff. But joining us now, Jordy Cunningham of the King's Den. Very unexpected, but thank you, Jordy, for jumping on at a moment's notice.
What's going on, guys? What do we have here?
Nothing much. Just something that we randomly stumbled upon in the middle of a live show.
Yes, I did not I've heard IFLO, I've heard Brown. I haven't heard much about Carter. I really didn't think this was going to happen.
So, Jordy, let us know, how has Jeff Carter been playing? We can look at his numbers all day, but realistically, none of us have studied the Kings nearly as much as you have this season. What is Jeff Carter looking like right now?
You know, he came into the season flying for like a 36-year-old. Like he had a lot of injuries past couple of years, and honestly, he was one of the veterans where all the time, remember the Kings weren't in the bubble, right? So they went 10 months without playing, and he got hurt in like January, February, whenever it was. So Carter didn't play for about a year, and he came out of the gates flying. But even in a shortened season, you could see that the fatigue got to him a little bit. Like over the last, from about March 1st on, he has struggled a little bit, but he has goals in I think 2 of the last 3 or 4 games. He's been playing a little better of late, and is a guy that's just going to bring more veteran leadership to this Penguins team.
It's definitely something they're not lacking, but it's always nice to add as well. I was completely shocked because we came back from break. Horwat, his eyes lit up, and I got a message from him on Twitter and now it has all devolved into chaos. The Penguins getting Jeff Carter for who knows what at this point. TSN Bob McKenzie reporting it initially. Dougie, you mentioned something about his analytics and his puck possession, his expected goals. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit? I know I kind of lost the blinders whenever everything went down.
I mean, so Jay Fresh Hockey just tweeted his player card, and when it doesn't look pretty, it doesn't look super cosmetic, I would say, but it would look better than, Mark Jankowski or anybody else they would have potentially, thrown out there as a third line center instead of Jared McCann. But I like this. I like this move for them because it's probably going to keep McCann on the wing. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not big on Jeff Carter, but I feel like they could have done a whole hell of a lot worse. I mean, we just, basically cheated death by losing out on a trade for Nick Delorier. So I'll take it.
These are completely unrelated, but also in the last 5 minutes, David Rittich has gone from Calgary to Toronto, and Braden Coburn has gone from the Senators to the Islanders.
Braden Coburn as well.
Coburn, that's
another name that's different. So, trade deadline day is heating up at 11 p.m. on the Sunday prior.
Wild.
Bob McKenzie has another update for us on the Carter deal. It's apparently the Kings will be retaining salary. Does not say how much.
I could have told you that.
Yeah, that probably 50% is probably going to be there.
Like, that's the only way. Like these veterans, like Carter and Brown, the only way the deal is getting done is if the Kings are retaining salary.
And it looks like the Kings will be receiving a couple of conditional draft picks.
Interesting.
I wonder if one of the conditions is if the Penguins win the Stanley Cup. That would be fantastic.
There you go.
Yes, so true.
So the rest of this night's about to get wild. We weren't going to turn this into a stream-a-thon, and we're still not. But
we will not be on here past midnight.
Horwat needs to go to bed.
Yeah,
I said that at the start of the show.
Well, now I'm wide awake. I'm giddy now, but this will be fun.
So it doesn't seem as of right now like any players are going back from Pittsburgh to LA. There's still time for Bob McKenzie to throw another Bob bomb down, but conditional draft picks for a guy like Jeff Carter, especially when we don't know the nature of Freddie Gaudreau's injury he sustained during tonight's game. So we'll see how all of that plays out. But as we mentioned earlier, GM Ron Hextall likes dealing with his former team so far. He's only made 2 moves in the 3 months of being Penguins general manager. One was a waiver pickup of Mark Friedman from the Philadelphia Flyers, and now a trade for Jeff Carter of the LA Kings, going back to his old stomping grounds as Hextall to pick up his new players for the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's crazy.
And Rob Blake loves making moves, and he loves taking chances on guys as well. So maybe he can try to snag a guy that Pittsburgh's kind of lost faith in, sort of thing, like a younger guy. Like Rob Blake loves doing that, and he's done that a couple times this season. So who knows? We'll see what happds.
Do we have the guy for you?
I was going to say, maybe Juuso Riikola, I'm guessing that Horwat is thinking of as well.
Because, you look at it, Rob Blake went and got Elias Anderson during the offseason from the Rangers, and then he went and got Brendan Lemieux recently from the Rangers as well. So he likes taking chances on these young guys that could help the team. In, again, the best prospect pool in hockey as well.
Yeah.
We know you like boasting about that, Jordy, but let me just ask you this really quickly. I know that we already kind of came down with the fact that it's going to be a couple conditional picks. What would you expect the return for a Jeff Carter to be? I know it says conditional picks, but what would you expect it to be?
That's about, again, I didn't think you were getting much for Jeff Carter. He's, like I said, he's 36. He's got 2 more years left at 5.3. That's nothing. That's not nothing to sniff your nose at. I knew LA was going to be retaining salary in the deal, but again, it's just, I wonder, I don't remember if he has a no movement or something like that, but I wonder if someone maybe now this trade happens and then maybe Seattle picks him up or something. I don't know, but I really didn't think any return would be high for Carter.
It's funny because you also put in our comments earlier some very mean stuff about sending Olli Maatta back to the Pittsburgh Penguins. While I am very happy that Olli Maatta is not coming back to the Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm a little skeptical about Jeff Carter because we saw last year how bringing an experienced guy works when Patrick Marleau came to the Penguins and kind of just faded into nothing and then went back to San Jose. Now, I don't think Jeff Carter is going to be like that, mainly because Jeff Carter, I feel like, has a little bit more of a shot. And with him on that Penguins third line, the way that it's kind of maneuvering right now as the second line, I think he could set up for him to be pretty successful when it comes to being a trigger man for a line with Evan Rodriguez or Jason Zucker. So it's definitely something that is going to be intriguing. And luckily enough, he has a 3-day break for the Pittsburgh Penguins for him to get back to Pittsburgh and get in for hopefully a first game on Thursday against the Philadelphia Flyers, his former team.
Yeah,
Ooh.
for sure. And like I said, like Carter hasn't been the best player this season. He was hot out of the gate, but he hasn't been the best player. And like his line kind of bounced around as well and stuff like that. But he has 19 points in 40 games this season. So not the best numbers, but like he's still a veteran that has like won cups before. And he's bringing it to a team that has a lot of veteran leadership. So he's just going to help out you guys in that aspect for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to turn my nose up at a half point a game player for the Penguins bottom six right now. It's something that'll definitely help, especially going into the playoffs against the teams they're going to have to play. Dougie, we haven't gone to you in a little while. What are your thoughts right now about the Jeff Carter thing? Because it's definitely, at this point, it is definitely confirmed by Bob McKenzie.
Yeah. So at 50% retained, Jeff Carter would be $2.63 million against the cap. Part of me wonders if we could get a third team in there to be a broker and get 75% retained and bring him down to just under 2 million. I mean, I'm totally content with him at 2.6, but if you can get him for like 1.96 or whatever the number ends up being, that would be incredibly ideal for Carter to be your third line center potentially for this year and next year.
It's funny because at this point of the show, I've completely almost blacked out to what happened prior to the Jeff Carter deal being confirmed. I have no idea what I actually said about Jeff Carter before because we talked about it. And I'm kind of scared to go back and listen to it. But Horwat, what are your thoughts right now? I know you're scouring Twitter, being our local scout here for the tip of the iceberg. So what are you thinking as of right now?
Not too much other than, dear God, I hope this works. I mean, Jeff Carter's Wikipedia page has already changed to say he's a Pittsburgh Penguin. People are fast on the internet.
Yes.
It's interesting. He's a guy that we have seen be very good, right? I mean, with the Flyers, no less, too. But now that it's coming out of LA, he's 36. I mean, it's not 41 like Patrick Marleau. He's got a little bit, of a fresher set. It'll be interesting. And as long as like the numbers seem to look good, we're not paying a bunch of money for him. It's not like we're losing a guy. I want to see the conditions on the picks because we have none. We have no picks and we need draft picks. That's the part that got me. But as of now, it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting. I don't mind it because, I mean, like I said, I am also a backup Kings fan. So I've been able to kind of watch Carter Hart. Oh, my God.
It is
All
late.
right.
It is
Here's
late.
my exhaustion. I've seen Jeff Carter kind of change into the player he is. I've seen him win a cup or two. He's a fun player. He can be. He just has to go back to that form here.
Well, we still have 16 hours left until the trade deadline. So obviously Hextall and Burke might have some more moves up their sleeve. And who knows, maybe the LA Kings have some more moves up their sleeve too. So Jordy, what are you looking for the rest of before trade deadline for the Kings?
Well, the Carter one was like kind of not least on the list, but I'd have if you had to rank Kings players that I thought were going to be traded, I thought Carter would have been fourth on that list. I would have had Iafallo 1, Brown 2, Quick 3, and I think an Iafallo trade could still happen. The only thing is like the two front. I heard Toronto interested in Iafallo, and they went and got Foligno today, and I heard the Islanders in on Iafallo and Brown, and then they went and got Zajac and Palmieri. So I don't really know where Iafallo could go now. I heard Boston may be interested. And with Iafallo, I think it could be kind of the same as what everyone was saying about Foligno today, where you trade him at the deadline and then re-sign him in the offseason. Because Iafallo likes it in LA and LA likes him. So if he's one of those guys. Like he's still like 27, I think. He's like, if you can trade him and then re-sign him, like that's what they want to do with iFollow. But I could also see Brown going, and I could also see Quick going as well. And also just Twitter is great for little stupid things like this. Carter being traded means everyone from that 70s line from a few years ago is now gone off the LA Kings.
That's retire those jerseys, and that's. But
shout out now, overpriced Tanner Pearson. As you guys know, I am in Vancouver and also a Canucks fan.
When we had Pearson, he was good. I mean,
hey, he was great for us last year. I'm like, okay, this year, but still not worth that amount of money.
Yeah. No, not at all. Well, Horwat, we've had now 2/3 of that 70s line, and not even your favorite player. So maybe someday we'll get one of your favorite players, Tyler Toffoli, on the Pens.
That'd be the fun one. But that contract he's got now is a little pricey. So it's got a big
That's
number
a great
on it.
contract for him.
No, I know, but
early in the season when he was leading the league in scoring, maybe.
Yeah. Against this old team. Wait, can I say one more thing? Just
yes,
in the non Penguins related.
Of course.
How are the Pirates doing?
Hey, 2 wins in a row, baby.
2-game win streak.
Yeah,
Fire it
won
up.
the series against the Cubbies. Raise the jolly freaking Roger. We're excited here.
Fire it up.
But
Fire it up.
listen, I'm sure we could all talk probably for the next 16 hours until the trade deadline. But obviously, we all need a little bit of sleep before the craziness that will ensue tomorrow. Thank you to both Doug and Jordy for joining the show. Yeah. First, we'll start with Jordy. What's coming up for you on the Kings Den? I'll let you plug some stuff really quickly since you were gracious enough to join us.
Well, I knew this was going to happen, but just when you guys started recording is when I finished recording my episode, and I knew like I was going to finish recording and a trade's going to go down tonight instead of tomorrow. I just knew it was going to happen, but all the trades are going to be talked about on Thursday's episode. This episode coming out tomorrow talks about the last 3 games, how we finally beat Marty Jones. Like we just couldn't beat Marty Jones all season for some fucking reason. But about the last 3 games from this week, a win against Arizona and then split a series against San Jose. And then I talk about the trade pieces that could happen. I follow Quick, Brown. Didn't mention Carter, so now that'll be a major talking point on Thursday's episode.
Awesome. And where can our listeners find you on social media as well?
At Cunningham Jordy on Twitter or at the Kings Den THPN.
Awesome. Dougie, where can our listeners find you and what do you have coming up?
Alrighty. So you guys can all follow me on Twitter at Doug_Glattke. You guys can see a lot of Pens tweets on there. And also my friends and I from college, we're doing a trade deadline live stream tomorrow for our university's television station. So I'll be tweeting that link out closer to 12 o'clock when we start. And anybody who wants to pop in and watch, I think I'm going to have Brlansky on for a little bit. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. I got a couple of decent guests lined up, so it's going to be a blast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining, Dougie and Horwat. Any last thoughts before we send the listeners home for the first time this week?
Listen, I know we all just had the big freak out over a trade. I mean, again, I'll send you off with something that Bob McKenzie just said. It's kind of important because, we had all these discussions, but it is still important that there has been no official word yet. And until the call is made, nothing is official. But, I mean, Bob McKenzie is coming out of retirement for tomorrow's trade deadline. Apparently, he's going to be at the TSN desk. So we'll see how it goes. But, until everything is final and we know for sure, it's all just fun and games for now.
Well, on that note, I think that's going to close out this episode. I really hope that this isn't all just debunked right after we finish recording and we just wasted the past 25 minutes talking about a trade that didn't happen. But
that's called content.
That's called content for you, and it'll be very funny if it does happen. But that is going to do it for this episode of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. The Penguins are on a 3-game winning streak and are just 2 points off of a first-place position. We will see you guys on Thursday. Have a good one, Pens fans.